Hi again, hand readers. Jennifer here, longtime practitioner, teacher, and author of all things to do with hands and hand reading. And today's topic is the basal phalanges of the fingers and their relative thickness or thinness. These basal phalanges are known as the water level phalanges in the 5-element system of how to read hands. In the 5-element system, each level of phalanges has what's known as its own world. The tips relate to the ideological world. It's the world of thinking and ideology and concept and thought, and they are air governed. Matters to do with the executive world are linked to the middle level or fire governed phalanges of the hands. These have to do with everything practical and administrative, and the basal level phalanges are the ones closest to our palm. And in these phalanges, we find representation of everything to do with the sensual world, the material world, the world of pleasure. Examination of the phalanges of the 12 phalanges of the 4 fingers, 3 on each finger, is an area of specialization in itself. Ideally, of course, we'd like to see all the phalanges in harmonious proportion to one another. And what we're really looking for is anything that stands out as being particularly thin or thick or fat or full. Now, full and plump phalanges, where you really see no air in between the fingers. Here's an image to demonstrate what I'm talking about here. In this person's life, their security is sought within the material world. They are preoccupied with their senses. They enjoy life's luxuries. And here's a picture of a palm print, and you can see on the print how plump those basal phalanges have printed. Of course, a very strong clue, even if you don't have the live hand in front of you. We see here strong physical cravings, a focus on food, perhaps cooking and wines. Usually these people do very well at entertaining and making food for people, catering. The well-known meaning here is, of course, the predisposition for weight gain, and generally the person is more materialistic, more self-indulgent, and unfortunately in the unredeemed we might find that the person exhibits more greed and more self-centeredness. The opposite polarity, which is when the basal phalanges are particularly wasted and narrowed, one can literally see air in between the fingers. This, in the old traditional palmistry, the famous saying is that money slips through your fingers. But the idea here really is that materialism matters less to people with particularly thin basal phalanges. Here's a picture of Bob Marley's hands, and you can see the noticeable gaps at the base. You can really see a lot of air and light, specifically noticeable between the index and middle fingers, but likely we'd find these gaps between all his fingers. What this really is indicating is an increase of emotional detachment. Here we could start discussing the difference between the palm and the fingers. The palm represents the body, very broadly speaking, and the fingers represent the mind. And when there's a sort of a disconnect, these vacant spaces between the metaphoric body and mind, the concept is that the person tends to intellectualize and rationalize their emotions. We could imagine that their very security is found within thinking as opposed to in sensual. So there's a distinction here between those who crave luxury and those who love to think. When it comes to eating, this is a person who eats to live and doesn't live to eat. With regard to food, this is a sign of a person who's quite fussy, who's minimalistic. You might even find in some instances, depending much on the rest of the hand, an austerity in the nature. This is a person who, if you're at, for example, a gathering of people and there's a buffet of food, a smorgasbord of food, this is the person who will be very proprietous. They won't jump up and be first in line. They'll wait for others to take their food and then they will go to the table and help themselves. So putting others' needs before their own. They are seldom, if ever, greedy. And with regard to their sexuality, some reserve. Fingers are such a big topic and we really have to break them down into tiny little incremental bits. I thought next week I'll talk a little bit about knotty fingers, what it might mean when the knuckles are very developed and then the phalanges narrow in between the knots. I'll see you then, and thank you so much for watching and listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Bye for now.